Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And the free agency period and the offseason in earnest really about to get underway today as we start getting ready for the 2042 season. Time flies when you're having fun. Appreciate the thoughts and input from the Worldwide Scouting Department on some of our options in free agency. We've got money to spend this year, and we definitely have holes on the roster to fill. Unfortunately, the free agent class outside of Victor Ramirez, who's going to cost about $45 million a year, and doesn't necessarily fill one of our bigger needs, given that I really like our infield, isn't all that impressive. A position that we definitely need help at is outfielder. We talked a little bit at the end of the last episode about the young outfielder Olivero Garcia. Ravenspawn 3 suggested we just sign him right now, even though we only have high scouting accuracy. He's not looking for a ton of money. He's young. We think he's got upside potential. And I tend to agree with that, but the one thing that I've seen that does bother me and make me want to make sure we get to know him a little bit better is that he struck out a relatively insane 166 times in 445 major league at-bats. He's been a slightly above league average offensive player despite that, and we do think there's room for him to improve, and we do think if we played him primarily against right-handed pitching, he's a little better against righties than he is against southpaws. But I want to make sure, since we're going to have to be giving him a 3-year deal, even though the money's not crazy, that we go in with eyes wide open. I don't think he's someone who's going to come off the market immediately. And there are some other guys who are interesting. We could reunite with Phil Dingwell, so we're getting an updated scouting report on him. Johnny Cohn, still don't understand how a guy who's been in our own division for the last 3 years is someone that we have low accuracy on. But like his glove, and he's a switch hitter whose bat should be a little better against righties than lefties, so he's also intriguing, not looking for much money. Bronson McKnight, a right fielder, another guy, a switch hitter, interesting defensively, decent speed, and really good base running instincts, although he's not a great base stealer, and another guy who's a little better against righties than lefties. I tend to think that ultimately Garcia will be the answer, but we do technically need 2 outfielders, so a reunion with Dingwell is still possible as well. He's only looking at this point for a 2-year extension at $7.5 million a year, so we can probably get him for a little less than that, and we would only be playing Dingwell against left-handed pitching normally, so hopefully the fact that he's wrecked physically is not too much of an issue. So I'm still investigating options there. Also, like a thought that got recently from Sports Guy 1527 on Jason House, suggested that the versatility of him as a two-way player, his defensive versatility, and I've always really liked his bat against left-handed pitching, suggests that we should bring him back. And although he is fragile, his contract demand is less than we thought it would. But the most important part to me is that he still has 1 option year left. I don't think if everyone's healthy and we build the roster the way I want, that he's necessarily going to be one of the 6-ish infielders that would make our 26-man roster. But the fact that we can stash him in AAA for a year, if we need to, makes it worthwhile to me. Now, he wants a promised role in a starting lineup. We're happy to give him promotional incentives that we don't think he'll ever miss or he'll ever hit. But I have a feeling the promised role as a starter could be an issue as far as the money. But he says he's willing to think about it. So we'll get an offer out to House right now. Pitching-wise, really happy that we made the trade for a potential fourth starter in Mr. Campos right when the offseason got underway, because as expected, the pool of pitchers, particularly starting pitchers who are available, is not all that inspiring. Brian Norton was on our team last year, was a rental for us. Bernie Barrera, of course, a longtime member of our team. David Guadrone, a longtime member of our team, former first-round draft pick. Andy Medrano has been mentioned by the Worldwide Scouting Department as someone who's interesting, and agree with that. The lefty has a 5-pitch arsenal, okay stamina, good at holding on runners. The ground ball tendencies should work well with our strong infield. Ultimately, the stuff a little below average, the movement above average, the control average. 26 years old, fragile physically. Looking at his 3 years of major league experience, he's been a slightly below average major league pitcher, but still has some value. But at $10 million a year, although we can afford it, not necessarily going to push hard right now. I think my thought is even after we sign a couple of outfielders, we'll likely have plenty of money left if there's a player or two who are just being dumped as rentals as we get closer to the trade deadline next year. And I do feel that we've got options in AAA, most notably potentially with Makoto Hirota, if he develops well this offseason, who could step into the rotation pretty easily for us next year. Doesn't mean that I won't try to add someone with a little more endurance who could be a long reliever and a spot starter for us if we need. And honestly, a reunion with a guy like Barrera or a Norton, if they stay on the market and have their demands come down, is certainly realistic. Guadrone looking for a lot less right now than his arbitration number, which was up around $8 million, if I remember correctly. So he's an interesting option too. He would add another lefty into the mix for us, even though he's not necessarily as good as some of those other guys. So we'll keep an eye on all of these options. The one thing I haven't mentioned that is a position of need is catcher against left-handed pitching. And with the way the free agent and the trade markets look, I think Elliot Bedford's finally going to get his shot to be our catcher against left-handed pitching. Like the durability, the defense is fine, albeit not as great as I'd normally want from a catcher. And the bat is a little better against lefties than righties. So the 26-year-old is in his last option year. Have the optionality if we find somebody else as time goes on or through the trade market when the season goes to move on from Bedford pretty easily. But right now it just doesn't seem to me like there's an acceptable or a good solution in free agency or the trade market that's materially better than Bedford for a price that we'd be willing to pay. And thinking about our pitching staff, as I mentioned, I really like our prospective rotation as long as Leo Martinez returns from that torn meniscus, similar to what he's always been. The gap we have is in the guy who's going to fill in if we have injuries to the starting rotation. Jeff Colson, in terms of his arsenal, would be that. But the 30 stamina means he's kind of a 4-ish inning guy if we do start him, which is certainly not ideal. Obviously can do it for a start or two in a pinch, given that we've got such a good bullpen behind him. But still, ideally, would like there to be another guy who could actually be a credible 5+ inning starter for us on the rotation or on the staff. So we're going to continue looking for that, mention some of the options, possible a reunion or possible some other players that we talked about. But right now there's a lot of fish in the sea at the beginning of free agency, so we're not just going to jump at the first one because different things can emerge and opportunities can emerge as we get closer to the winter meetings from unexpected places sometimes. And we have simmed ahead a few days, and we've gotten our scouting report on Olivero Garcia. You can see there's reportedly some decent demand for him. We now have that very high scouting accuracy. Not a ton has changed. Still think the bat is potentially interesting. Still definitely have some concerns about the contact and the avoiding strikeouts. Fragile physically, like the personality. The defense is meh. His demand already going up is a guy who's not even 23 years old, who happens to be on the free agent market, who we think there's some upside with. But with the way we think his bat could look against right-handed pitching, and he's certainly also playable against left-handed pitching, although we think he'd be more successful against righties, particularly with the ability to draw some additional walks. It's not a crazy commitment for him. We're going to probably even guarantee him a spot in the starting lineup, since as a left-handed batter, that would be he'd be playing every day against right-handed pitching at least, which is basically a starter. I think I might restructure the contract a bit to put it a little more front-loaded because we are going to be needing to get Kevin Roberts Jr. signed this offseason as well, and that is something that we're monitoring closely. Some of you have suggested just doing it right away, which I want to do. We're going to get it done, but still going to monitor things from time to time and see if maybe we can save a few dollars if we catch him on a day when his demands are a little bit lower, but not expecting any significant changes to what he's looking for, which I believe the last time I checked in was around $39.6 million a year on average for 6 years. And in something that's actually very rare for me to do, since we know there's some demand for Garcia, he's looking for $39 million over 3 years. We're actually going to offer him $40 million over 3 years, a bit front-loaded with $15 million this upcoming year, followed by 13 and 12. Not going to mess around with option years because it's a short contract. He's young. He's certainly tradable if we need to. And he does have a lot of demand out there. Not going to mess around with guaranteeing in the starting lineup. We're going to get an offer out to Olivero Garcia right now and see what happens. And pivoting back to what I was talking about with the eventual extension for Kevin Roberts Jr., demand right now still that same $39.6 million. Again, not really anticipating that it's going to change, but going to at least sim forward to the winter meetings, keep checking on things, and at some point this offseason I anticipate we'll get 5 tools locked up through his late 30s, possibly even it will be the year that he turns 40, I believe, and hopefully guarantee that the remainder of his outstanding career is with the Rockies. And we got a couple more of the scouting reports that we've been waiting on, some of those outfielders. 27-year-old Bronson McKnight basically looks the way we thought he was, or thought he would. He is who we thought he was. Switch hitter, looks like a useful fifth outfielder given his defense, but certainly nothing special. But do like that switch hit bat. Johnny Cohn, glad that we got the scouting report on him. Don't know why we needed it, but does have some negative personality quirks, particularly the low leadership, but certainly another guy who could be a representative and respectable player for us. But honestly, neither of them are so interesting to me that they're going to get me to pivot from a potential reunion at this point. With our old buddy Phil Dingwell. Still like the glove and still think that he's the most interesting bat of the three, particularly against left-handed pitching, which is what we'd be using him for. The money, not crazy. We'll try to save some. He says he's looking for $7.5 million a year for the next 2 years. We're going to certainly, actually, we can probably pay him $7.5 million this year, but we might make it something with team options to give ourselves a little more freedom with him going forward. And Dingwell looking for 2 years, $15 million. We're actually willing to offer him 3 years, $20 million, but team options for the second and third seasons. But a bigger guarantee this year of $8 million, essentially $8.6 million if we buy him out for 1 year. And he says he's willing to think about that. That gives us more optionality. And again, we don't think that we're going to be spending all of the money we have this season anyways. So even if we pay a little bit more for him this year, avoids us guaranteeing future seasons and does give us flexibility to keep him around at a lower number going forward. So at this point, offers out to Dingwell, House, and Garcia. Garcia favors the offer that we've made to him, and we're continuing to monitor what's going on with the pitchers. Plenty of potential options out there among the starters, which are kind of what I think we need, as we've talked about: Medrano, Norton, Bernie Barrera. There's actually been an offer made to David Guadron already. May let him pass. He's probably the least talented of the four guys that we're talking about. So even though he's only looking for a 1-year deal, we are still a team trying to get back to the World Series, and would prefer a little more quality than him, even if we have to pay more, given that we still have money to spend. And another week in the books. The calendar's turned to December. We've got the winter meeting starting less than a week from now. So maybe will be some opportunities to add a starting pitcher then. House still favors our offer and still waiting for feedback from both Dingwell and Garcia on the offers that we've made to them. And Olivero Garcia has said that he likes our offer right now, the best that he's received to date. Obviously, things can change there, but that's finally a bit of constructive feedback after around 2 weeks of nothing. And Jason House has signed on the dotted line for us. As we noted, he's got an option year left, which is important since there's no guarantees he's going to make our major league roster. 3.56 ERA for us last year, over 60 2/3 innings. And he was very productive with the bat, hit .318 with 5 homers and 24 ribbies in 173 at-bats. So although he doesn't have a guaranteed major league spot next year, we're not spending a ton of money on him. And he could certainly make the roster again out of spring training, but if he doesn't, he's a guy who, if we bring him up, whether it's to help us as a pitcher or to help us in the field, gives us a lot of optionality with our lineups in our roster. And as the winter meetings get underway, feedback from Dingwell positive, but unfortunately Olivero Garcia says he's got a better offer from Salt Lake. Wonder exactly what he is looking for at this point. His demand is spiked up to almost $19.5 million a year. He's certainly interesting as a young player, but as we've talked about, between the fragility and his proclivity to strike out and the difficulty he has making contact over the admittedly small sample size of his MLB career and his very mediocre defense, I'm not in love with him at a price tag of close to $20 million compared to the $11 million-ish we thought he was going to be several weeks ago. So maybe time to revisit some options for a left-handed hitting outfielder. Unfortunately, the winter meetings are underway, so perhaps there will be some interesting trades to consider. And before we spend a lot of time perusing the trade market for perhaps a left-handed hitting outfielder who may be a bit more reasonable in demands than Oliveira Garcia, checking in on the pitchers, and the guys we've talked about are still available. David Guidron's still out there. He's the cheapest, looking for 1 year at about $4 million to come back. But the demands for the other guys are coming down too. Bernie Barrera is only looking for a 1 year deal at $11.6 million, so there's certainly some attractiveness in that. Like his Iron Man personality, he did get moved out of our rotation a year ago, but as a long reliever and someone we're quite familiar with, he could be interesting. Brian Norton did a real nice job for us over the last half of the season after we picked him up as a rental. 32 years old, he's looking for 2 years at around $11.5 million a year. Does want a commitment to be in the starting rotation. And then I had mentioned Andy Medrano, who is someone who Raven Spawn 3 had mentioned. He's looking for a bit less money than those other two guys. Does want a 3-year contract, so a bit more of a commitment, but doesn't need to be promised a role. Young enough that we could certainly trade him and eat a little bit of the contract, and he would give us another lefty. Looking at what he has done over his career, parts of 3 seasons with the Indianapolis Racers and the Las Vegas Athletics, as we talked about, basically been about a league average pitcher. But basically he's just an insurance policy for us, and I think we are going to give the lefty mini horse an offer here to potentially be a long reliever for us and a guy who we feel like can step in and give us some credible major league starts if we have some injury issues, as I noted with his service time in the league. We can definitely trade him if we need to, and the money's not going to be so extreme that it's going to prevent us from doing anything else that we want. We're still always going to try to save our money, though. He's looking for almost $27 million over 3 years. We're offering him about $22 million over 3 years, slightly front-loaded. We will give him a bigger bonus if he gets to 180 innings. Don't know that that's really going to tip the numbers in our favor all that much as far as him potentially considering this offer. He's pretty insistent on what he wants in terms of the numbers, so we may have to be a little more aggressive with him. As I said, it's still less money per season than if we had gone with some of the more experienced starters like Norton or Barrera, and a little more expensive than David Guidron. And also, obviously, we're making a multi-year commitment here, but he's a better pitcher than Guidron, and he's cheaper than the other guys. We're still going to try to save money, though, offering him $24 million a year over 3 years, which is less than he's looking for. Did lower the minimum innings for a bonus down to 162, so if he qualifies for the ERA title, he's eligible, rather than needing 180 innings. And we kicked up the bonus there to $500,000. Still think it's unlikely that he'll get that type of usage with us, but hopefully that helps a little bit on the margin in terms of us getting this to be an offer that he might consider. He's very insistent on his terms. So we're going to wait. There's lots of other options. I do think Medrano is probably the best of the three, but we're not going to desperately chase after him when we've got, as I mentioned, guys like Norton, Barrera, and Guidron, and several other guys who could be more than competent long relievers, spot starters for us still available. And when we think about left-handed hitting outfielders, you may remember that an episode or two ago we talked about John Ledford and perhaps revisiting an opportunity to maybe trade for him with the Rangers when we got to the winter meetings if things hadn't worked out. Still think when we look at his personality, look at his glove, and look at his potential bat against right-handed pitching, he fits the bill for us. The issue is that unfortunately The price to trade for him has increased very significantly since we checked in on him about a month ago. Mentioned before that kind of 4 mid-range players could have gotten him for us about a month ago. Those same 4 players don't even come close to touching him right now. So don't know that Skid Row Ledford is a realistic opportunity for us at this point, unfortunately. Sometimes you benefit by waiting until the winter meetings, but in this case, his price is much higher. As we noted, his salary numbers do start getting a bit aggressive in his late 20s for a guy who's fragile and hasn't really been much more than a slightly above average offensive player at the major league level. But just don't think it's realistic for us to try to pick up Ledford at this point, unfortunately. And I guess the reason Andy Medrano was so insistent on getting the terms that he was looking for is that he basically had a done deal with the Philadelphia Phillies, so he moves on to the Phillies championship team. Only $8.2 million a year over 3 years, so it ended up being just $600,000 more than we had offered him. But he wanted us to clearly exceed that offer to bring him on board, which we were unwilling to do. And the living legend Kevin Roberts, Mr. 5 Tools, demand remains the same, $39.6 million a year for 6 years, so looking for about $238 million total. We're, of course, trying to save some money, offering him 6 years, guaranteed value of $210 million, although we did increase the MVP bonus a slight amount. He also had a player option in the final year of the season that we took out of this contract. Don't know that this is going to be quite enough for him to consider it, but we'll view it as a first starting point at the very least. And he's willing to think about it, so we may have an opportunity to get 5 Tools Roberts locked up, hopefully through the remainder or most of the remainder of his career at an average of $35 million a season if he agrees to this 6-year, $210 million potential extension that would kick in after this upcoming season. And I think we've found our left-handed hitting outfielder. Admittedly, I don't think it's as good as Ledford if we had just traded for him a month ago. I don't think it's as good as Oliveira, but it's cheaper, which is something. We're going to pick up Chris Kuhn from the Washington Nationals, an arbitration-eligible player who we're getting him to keep a little bit of his contract this upcoming season, which is better than nothing. He's going to be arbitration eligible again next year when he's set to make about $9.5 million, and then I'll have another year after that. He's a guy who the Nationals claimed off of waivers from the expansion Indiana Racers in a poor move by them. He's hit over 20 home runs each of the last 2 years for Washington. Definitely a guy who's better against right-handed pitching than left-handed pitching. Certainly not a world beater, but certainly a useful left-handed bat. Like his range in the outfield, although he makes a fair amount of errors, his arm is only average. He's going to want to get paid over time. Decent base runner, though. Just a competent major league left-handed hitter. Nothing more, nothing less. He was an all-star his first year in Washington when he hit 287. Down a little bit this past season, but still more than productive enough for what we're looking for. We basically just want to make sure there's another potential left-handed bat in the lineup that, even if it is not a great player, is someone that other teams have to respect. To bring him on board, we have to give up a couple of right-handed hitting outfield prospects. Victor Ayala is a guy who hit well over 300 in both AA and AAA over the last year and a half or so. Good contact, respectable defensive outfielder, really good speed. But the gap power, the home run power, and the eye are all kind of average. As a right-handed hitter, he's a little better against lefties than he is against righties, at least in terms of avoiding strikeouts. not someone we're planning on building around. And honestly, Steven Santos, a similar story, 10th round draft pick from 5 years ago, a more than competent fourth or fifth outfielder, combined for 24 homers and 98 ribbies this past year in Double-A and Triple-A. So I think he can be a useful major league player, particularly against left-handed pitching. But given that we're still trying to bring back Dingwell to fill that role for us for the next couple of seasons against left-handed pitching, and getting a left-handed batter like Chris Kuhn on board is, to me, more important right now. We are going to go ahead and make this trade, bring the veteran Kuhn on board, and get at least one of those outfield spots that we needed to fill filled. As I said, Ledford, the trade price for him was materially higher than it was a month ago, which was just disappointing. And I really don't love the fact that Garcia's demand is now over $20 million and climbing. We'll definitely throw him onto the short list. I guess we'll put him on the prospect short list because he's relatively young, and check in with him in a year or two and see how his career has moved along. And given that we're not going to be bringing on a more expensive free agent like Garcia, I think we are going to dip our toe back into the pitching market. And I think Norton is a little better than Barrera now, and Barrera is a little better than Guadron now. So Norton is the most talented. Unlike the other two, he's looking for 2 years rather than one. But he was 5-2 with a 3.63 ERA for us when we rented him, combined 13-8 last year. We're envisioning him as a long reliever, but he is certainly more than capable of being a fourth or fifth starter for us at this point. He's looking for a 2-year contract, says the Brewers have made him a good offer, does want a promised role in the starting rotation. We'll see how he reacts if we don't guarantee him that, to try to keep him from being upset when he's not a starter for us. And this will be a good way for us to find out exactly how insistent he is on getting that starting rotation promised role. We've taken it off, but we're offering him $24 million guaranteed over the next 2 years. Says he's looking for 22.8. So a not meaningless increase in the amount of money that we're giving it to him, and obviously it's front loaded with more of that money right away. He says he's willing to think about it, so at least we've got the discussion going with Mr. Norton at this point. We brought House on board. We've made the trade for Kuhn. Dingwell reportedly favors our offer, and we'll find out what happens with a reunion with Norton and a potential extension with Kevin Roberts Jr. And the initial feedback from Norton, positive. He likes our offer right now, sees himself reuniting with us for next season. So we'll see where things go. And we've kept Kevin Roberts Jr. from potentially hitting free agency for the first time. Signed him to that big deal when he was just a young prospect, and he's in the final year of that contract coming up in 2042. 6-year, $210 million extension. Obviously, the fans extremely excited that KRG will hopefully be with us throughout the remainder of his career. Coming off of another big season last year, 33 years old, he remains in incredible shape and incredible, still an 80 overall player, very productive, 28 homers, scored over 100 runs, drove in over 100 runs, stole 43 bases, hit over 300, had another big-time season for us, the type of season that continues on his potential Hall of Fame trajectory. Obviously risky that he's now going to be with us for the next 7 years through his mid to late 30s with all guaranteed money. But again, for a 33-year-old, he hasn't shown any signs of breaking down at all. Very conceivable that the last couple years of that contract we may regret, but he is a franchise icon. member of all 7 of our World Series championship teams here in Colorado, and someone who we want to be a Rocky for life. And looking at our finances, though, with that big extension to Kevin Roberts Jr., not a ton of financial flexibility for us going forward. Obviously, we'll work that out over time. We'll hopefully move on from some players and decline some guys who have bigger arbitration numbers. But signing Kevin Roberts Jr. to that extension is likely our big move effectively for the 2042 to 2043 offseason. And just got a bad trade offer from the Nationals, trying to pick up Makoto Hirota, who, as we talked about earlier, is one of the top young pitching prospects in our organization. Our former closer, Adonis Valer, signed a 3-year deal with the Detroit Tigers. Thought about reuniting with him, but with Ramirez and McKinney already as very strong left-handers in the pen, was a luxury that we just didn't need, and still feel like potentially bringing on a guy who can start for us like we hope Norton will be able to is just a more important lever for us to have on the pitching staff at this point. And we mentioned that Hiroto's hopefully a big part of our future, one of 2 pitchers who we have in the development lab. He's on track with his control program, which would be good. Ryan Harville frustrated with his pitch movement. 3 bat speed programs, Manriquez and Wheats both frustrated, but Marquis Mensch looks to be on track. And also 3 gap power programs. Carlos Bear Barrel de Villa's excelling. Alex Gamez on track, but unfortunately John Jefferson has been frustrated. And another day, another trade offer for someone in our development lab. Ryan Harville, the reliever, who we think could be an important part of our bullpen going forward. Right-hander Mario Penegate, who lacks control and is a right-handed reliever who we don't think is as good as Harville's potential, as well as a minor league pitcher, Andres Ayala, who doesn't really look like he has a future as a Major League Baseball player, so certainly not a deal that we would ever consider for Harville, who we're still hoping could become a very big-time arm out of our bullpen. And as we close in on the Rule 5 draft in just a couple days, Norton and Dingwell apparently don't love our offers. They say that they favor them, and they clearly haven't gotten anything better, but they've both been sitting out there for a while at this point, so still hoping they get something better before signing on the dotted line. Olivero Garcia still out there as well. His demand of over $22 million is now double what it was about a month and a half ago when free agency in the offseason got underway. So he's looking for more and more money. Good luck to him finding it. And a very uneventful Rule 5 draft overall. Only 6 players pick. We did not make any selections. We did not lose anybody. We've got 38 guys on the 40-man roster right now, kind of intentionally. Obviously, we could have tried to pick somebody up, but the hope is still that Dingwell and Norton will fill those final 2 spots on our 40-man roster. We did add 7 prospects to the 40-man before the Rule 5 draft to get us up to that 38 number. Seems like we're in a pretty good spot here if we're able to get Norton and Dingwell locked up. Hopefully over the next week or so, before we get too far into 2042, we'll know one way or another whether we're going to get those guys on board. And 1 down, 1 to go, as Phil Dingwell, former first-round pick, is going to remain with us even after that flirtation with free agency. I think the contract works for us, $8 million for this upcoming year when he'll be in the lineup for us against left-handed pitching and at least be a good defensive substitute for our outfield if we need to mix and match. And then we've got some optionality with the $6 million team options for the next couple of years. Not sure that we'll end up exercising those contracts, especially with the larger obligations we have in the outfield with that big extension to Kevin Roberts Jr., but trying to keep as much of the band back together as we try to deliver another World Series title here in Colorado. And unfortunately, running into a bit of an issue trying to reunite with Brian Norton, who we had a rental with a year ago. The Red Sox now involved, and looking for 2 years at $17.3 million a year, so almost $10 million a year more than we had over $10 million a year more than we had previously offered him. So it might be time to move on to plan B, or I guess at this point it might be C, D, or E as far as that second spot. Not second spot, but that spot is a spot starter / long reliever for us, kind of an insurance policy if we have rotation issues. I know Bernie Barrera has already signed at this point, but we'll check in on whether there's any other interesting options still out there. And both Bernie Barrera and David Guadron are off the market at this point. Some familiar names, though. Rich Hannon, who was with us years ago, available at this point. 33-year-old, is fragile physically. Six-time MLB or five-time MLB champion. He was with our 5 consecutive championship squads from 2033 to 2037. Really not a starter with only the 2-pitch arsenal, but does certainly have the stamina. I don't think he is the answer. Another very familiar name and a blast from the past, Noah Schultz, on the market is a 38-year-old, still wrecked physically, looking for $2.6 million. Is still a fan favorite, but the low leadership, the low adaptability, the wrecked injury proneness, and the 38 years old, despite the fact that he was also a member of those 5 consecutive championship squads for us, makes us think that we'll move on from him as well. Was intrigued by a couple of pitchers. Marcos Suarez, one that I thought about, but he's looking for $14 million a year for 2 years, so a bit less money than Norton. Steve Satchwell, who's currently of Boston, the team that's most aggressively looking for Norton at this point. Looking for a 3-year deal at $9 million per. He's wrecked physically. So we're going to go a little lower brow, given that this is a guy that we, unless we have some injuries, which of course we will in the rotation, don't anticipate needing all that much. We're going to go for Sergio Morales, former Cy Young Award winner in 2035. He was an All-Star in 2038. Great influence in the clubhouse, still can throw in the mid-90s, still has good stamina, a 4-pitch arsenal. He, fortunately, is only looking for a 1-year deal at $5.5 million, doesn't need to be promised a role. So I think in terms of maintaining financial flexibility, while at least giving us a body who could be a representative and competent major league starter if we needed one, Morales at $5 million for next year with no additional commitments on top of that could be the best option that we have out there. At this point, Norton and Garcia, can't rule them out, but we're not actively negotiating with them as they're looking for more and more money at this point. And the calendar has flipped to 2042. Nils Mensch on track with his bat speed program. Manriquez frustrated with his bat speed program, as is Steve Wheats. John Jefferson on track with gap power. Alex Gamez on track with gap power. And Carlos Bear Barrel de Villa excelling with gap power, which is positive. Hirota, unfortunately, now frustrated with his control program. But Ryan Harville on track with his pitch movement program. Hall of Fame results, Aroldis Chapman and Jacob deGrom, Francisco Lindor, all received over 60% this year, but none of them named to the Hall of Fame here in 2042. And Brian Norton, after a successful late season rental for us, has officially signed with the Red Sox. 2 years, $26.8 million. Interestingly, ended up being similarly front loaded to what we had offered him. So the Red Sox and Norton saw what we were doing and went that way. Still have not gotten any feedback yet from Sergio Morales to the offer that we made to him, but believe that a 1-year deal for us at this point is probably something that makes a bit more sense than a long-term extension. Although 2 years, to be fair, is not really long-term. And as we close in on the beginning of the IAFA signing period in just a couple days, still no feedback from Sergio Morales. Hasn't been a great indicator for us when people haven't given us relatively speedy feedback. Kind of indicates that they really don't love the offer, or perhaps they're aggressively exploring other options. Interestingly, Garcia seems like he may have played his hand too aggressively. Still says he's looking for that $22.3 million over 3 years. Doesn't necessarily seem like there's any other offers out there for him at this point. So it'll be interesting to see if perhaps his market dries up and maybe we could re-engage with him. We made that trade for Kuhn, but didn't feel like we gave up anyone that was critical to us. Always eager to bring more and better players into the organization, so tend to think he'll probably sign with somebody else. Says he's got a better offer, but we are to January 13th, and budgets could be starting to get used up by other teams at this point. And we've made it to the start of the IAFA signing period, which is where we'll conclude this episode. Just a heads up for the Worldwide Scouting Department, given that OOTP 27 is less than 4 weeks away at this point. I'm not going to have as long between this episode and the next episode. It's Monday morning, the 16th, President's Day, as I'm putting this episode out there. And I probably will be recording an episode to put out Tuesday morning on Monday evening. So if you're watching this episode and it's been out for more than 8 or 10 hours, appreciate your thoughts on what we should potentially do in the IAFA pool, but they won't necessarily impact my decision making if it's later than early Monday afternoon Eastern time when you happen to share them with me. So just want to be upfront about what we're going to be doing. Good news, hopefully, to those of you who are still watching at this point, is that means there will be a new episode up on Tuesday morning when we will make those decisions. Spent all of our training camp resources on 10 position players. No pitchers who were all that interesting to us. So we'll talk about the 10 players that we're strongly considering. And again, if you've got thoughts, would love to hear them. First baseman Willie Diaz looks like a useful bat, like the high work ethic, decent speed. The glove is certainly nothing special. The 16-year-old left-hander looking for $2.2 million. Don't tend to think he'll be the direction we end up going, as his ceiling is also, at this point, according to our scout, lower than anyone else we're considering. Catcher Enrique Torca, like the durability, slightly above average defensively, but a very potentially interesting bat for a catcher if he achieves his full potential. But achieving that full potential is always the big question with these young players. $3.6 million demands, so probably going to need to offer him every penny of the $5.2 million that we have available if we are to bring him on board. Shortstop Carlos Marquez, a very versatile defensive player with some positive personality traits. I think his bat can be average to slightly above average at everything else. Three-finger Marquez is a switch hitter. Does have that extreme development risk, though, and not a particularly good base runner. The last 7 guys we're going to talk about are the 7 players that our scout sees as having 80 potential on the traditional 20 to 80 baseball ratings platform, and you can see they are all looking for pretty significant money from 2.2 to 3.4 million. So probably we'll need to go all in on one of these guys if we want to bring them on board. Left fielder Luis Vera, probably one of the cleaner prospects. Durable, great personality traits, and a bat that we think can be above average to well above average at everything. The glove is not great. A little older at almost 18 years old. Not really sure how he got the Secretary of Defense nickname, given that his defense is probably the weakest part of his game. But the bat, the personality, and the durability are certainly interesting for Mr. Vera. Shortstop Omar Reynoso, not a great glove. Do like the high work ethic and baseball IQ. Like the durability. Think the home run power and the eye can both be potentially incredible. But he's going to struggle to make contact, going to strike out an insane amount, and don't think that the gap power is going to be all that special either. Not that it matters too much given his limited speed. Definitely think I prefer Vera over Reynoso. Catcher Mike Ramos, very similar batting profile to Reynoso. The power and the batting eye could both be incredible. Going to strike out a ton and struggle to make contact, but really like the glove with Ramos. So although question how many 100 times a year he's going to strike out and whether he can keep the batting average above 200, I'd say the over-under for him is about the same for each. The over-under for strikeouts is probably about 225, and the over-under on his batting average is probably about 225. But really love the glove, the home run power, and the eye. I think of Ramos, Reynoso, and Vera. Vera and Ramos are probably my 2 favorites. Ernesto Pena, a guy with a pretty well-balanced bat. We think the power and the eye could both be real interesting, like the high work ethic. The glove is nothing special, but he is 6'3" with close to average range, so think he could be a more than competent first baseman. Barnesy. Again, I'd put him a notch above Reynoso as well. Shortstop Alex Boy Wonder Lazoo, pretty interesting to me. Think the bat could be above average. Really like the speed and his base running instincts. Although his error rating is not great, his range, his arm, and his turn 2 ratings are all above average. Mixed personality, like the high adaptability, work ethic, and low financial ambition, but don't love the low leadership and baseball IQ. But certainly Boy Wonder, an interesting prospect. Mario Caicedo, interesting bat for a catcher with the eye and the contact, but the glove is just not special. I think if I were to go with a catcher, even though there's things I don't love about Ramos, would view him as above Caicedo. So to me, very early of these 680 rated prospects or 80 potential prospects that we've talked about, Caicedo and Reynoso are probably the 2 that don't make my final short list. Checking in on the last guy, Damiano Tilly Barine. Got another guy who could be slightly above average in everything offensively. Versatile defensive player capable of playing competent infield. Decent speed, does have that extreme development risk. Interesting decisions ahead of us. I would say the 5 guys that I am most interested in would be the shortstop, Tilly Barine, the shortstop, Alex Boy Wonder Lazoo, the first baseman, Ernesto Pena, the catcher, Mike Ramos, and last but not least, the left fielder, Luis Vera. But obviously, if you have other decisions, would love to hear about them. Feel like we've made decent progress this offseason. Got a left-handed hitting outfielder on board with Kuhn. Got a right-handed hitting outfielder on board with Dingwell. Decided that Bedford's going to be our catcher. We re-upped with Jason House. And as we sit here waiting for this offseason to continue moving forward, the big move, of course, is the 6-year extension to Kevin Roberts Jr. And the only hole that we are still focused on is a long reliever who can start for us in a pinch, and we do have that offer outstanding to Sergio Morales. Victor Ramirez, Olivero Garcia, and Trent Kaysen all remain on the market, and their demands are all much higher than they were when this offseason started. We'll see what happens with those guys over time. Certainly would anticipate that there might be an option for us to sign some interesting batters or pitchers who are still on the market to minor league contracts, or perhaps a minor league contract with a major league option down the line as we get closer to this season getting underway. Until our next episode, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.